Greetings, true believers, and welcome to episode 50 of the Pull List Podcast, a bi-weekly show about comics, pop culture, and faith. My name is Chris Poirier, and with me, as always, is the one and only Hector. How are we doing today, Hector?
I'm sorry, you've reached movie phone. If you'd like to select which movie you're going to watch, please hit 1.
Well, it's always good to know that Hector's here, but as some of you are going to get a treat, we're actually also doing video this week. We have a guest. So wait, there's more. And we are joined today with our wonderful special guest, Afuru Richardson. So welcome to the podcast. 50 episodes, and Hector and I literally have spent the last couple of weeks going, we have managed to go 50 episodes and not have Afua on our show, which makes us terrible human beings.
No, I'm glad to come in on such a monumentous occasion. Congratulations, guys.
Woo, we made it. We're 50.
It's not like you haven't been busy or anything, though. So
yeah, and we're going to get that. Save that for the podcast.
Like, considering the year we've had, any kind of accomplishment or good news, I'll take it.
Right.
So take that 50 years and throw some confetti. Be proud of yourselves.
So I actually had a bad confetti incident last week.
Oh, no. Don't throw confetti.
We're doing like a thing
party
for kids and their families, like a science-y VBS vibe. And like there was this big fun song, and I had a giant bucket of confetti, and I was like throwing confetti like when the kids were getting hype with their families. And I threw the confetti and didn't have a good grip on the bucket. And so I went like that, and the bucket flew out of my hand. The confetti looked amazing. But like I almost like took a parent's nose off. And I literally watched as the bucket sailed through the air and almost hit like a 4-year-old in the head. And then I'm like, it didn't. And so I just kept going, but I'm like, get a grip. Okay, here we go.
And this is why we can't have nice things, Hector.
No.
Oh, but
you need the arm straps like the Wii.
That's it.
So your controller doesn't go into
a confetti strap. When I patent that, I'm totally going to give you full licensing rights and everything.
I just want a small check.
Gotcha.
So I can build a sauna in my
as you can tell, dear listener, we're going to have an amazing show today. So strap yourselves in and prepare yourselves, for we have Comic Sign.
Better put the word out. Get ready for the nerd out. Better put specs on. Better bring next song. I could answer checks.
I love doing that because it confuses half of our guests, and then the other half that remembers MST3K and all of its glory goes, I get that reference. And then the other people are like, I still don't get that reference. I'm like, that's fine.
That's okay.
You keep listening, keep clicking.
I've done this with you for 50 episodes, and I forgot it was MST3K. So.
MST3K, yeah. Movie sign is what they say always, and that was the joke. Is they're like, what does it mean? Well, there you go. Moving on. So today's episode, as we've said, is 50 episodes, and we've tried to bring all kinds of wonderful guests on the show. And, well, it doesn't happen as quickly as we normally would like to, because Hector and I have, as you well know, because it's how you met us, we just run into tons of awesome folks on the con circuit. And, of course, we ran into all of our awesome friends in the con circuit in the North Carolina area. So that always holds a place in our heart. But because we talk about comics and the industry at large, we try to regale our guests with information on what's going on. So half of the time we talk about exciting things like Diamond Distribution and DC Comics creating their own thing. And then flash for everyone that hasn't read their news this week, Marvel goes and does the same thing. But, we'll save that one for next week because that's boring yet interesting. Nerds, I guess, just like talking. Yeah, Marvel's
launched their own distribution thing too.
Wow.
Through Penguin Random House that they're gonna. Diamond probably is not having a great Friday.
I was gonna say, wow,
because I'm sure they
had
knew,
2 breakups.
Right. They're going through a lot right now, as they say.
Bet. Oh my!
But
like 10 years ago, Taylor Swift at this point, so it's just sad songs and emo.
Right, they're listening to a bunch of emo 90s music right now and just kind of upset about it. But Afua, you've been doing you've been doing a lot, and we know that you are multi-talented to say the very, very least. But how about you give us kind of the short rundown of who is Afua?
Oh my, a mess. No.
We get real up on this show.
Let's see. For the past 15 years, I have been a creator, an illustrator, penciler, inker, and colorist of comic books for Marvel, DC, Image, Kodansha, Random House. And I've had the pleasure of working on Black Panther World of Wakanda with Ta-Nehisi Coates and Roxane Gay, and as well as Totally Awesome Hulk, X-Men 92. Goodness. Totally Awesome Hulk, and most recently, HBO's Lovecraft Country.
I'm sure none of our folks have heard of that. None. As Hector's over there, like, I have so many questions.
And in a prior life, I was it seems like another person forever ago, but I was a singer, a songwriter, voice actor, musician. I went on tour and opened for some really phenomenal people. I think my last gig was just at the time where I started taking comics seriously, which I think was I was a background singer for like Harmar Superstar and Jimmy Fallon for the talking about
okay, Mystery
Science Theater. Yes. Harmar appears there quite a bit. I have employed my hobbies to the fullest, and most recently I just kickstarted a book going back to Image, which was kind of where I started, a book that I'm writing and illustrating and making an album for, trying to bring all of those things together.
Yes.
In a book called Aquarius, the Book of Mer. And I just spoke with Image about it, and I have to make an update to my backers, but I'm actually going to push the book back to correspond with Free Comic Book Day.
Oh, nice.
So since, Free Comic Book Day it's usually in May, and I didn't know, but it was moved to August. So I'm actually going to move my book to August. Some of my co-collaborators are really struggling and going through quite a bit right now. Their families are sick. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to take on the jobs and do it myself. But so that there's, everybody has time to heal. Everybody has time to just diffuse from last year and take care of their families. It was a very tough decision. I don't like changing things around, but it'll be August 11th is when Aquarius, the Book of Mer will come out. So
yes,
by then I'll probably finish issue 2 and be ahead of the curve and make more songs and more music and give those who helped on Kickstarter more things. Just take all the free things. So sorry, just take.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, full disclosure, Hector and I backed the crap out of that. So
thank you.
I don't know on the full crap. I was on a budget, but I did.
Hey, everybody's on a budget. It was 2020.
I should have been on a budget, and then I didn't. And then when I told my wife what I did, she's like, "Okay, you're forgiven."
No,
but that's because ever since seeing, I believe, at least the image that you have behind you, because that was Dragon Con's badge.
It was
2 years ago, because of the 2020 year. I now lose track of things before 2020. It's like in the before times,
right? When we hugged one another,
right? That I know that
now when people do hug you, you don't know how to feel. It's just like,
right? You're like, yeah, okay. Right.
No, I'm fine with it. I keep my immune system very strong.
So we're all excited for Book of Mer, because I know that's something that, from what I've gathered from speaking to you in the past, that's kind of been in your head for a while. So
it definitely has.
Maybe tell us a little more about the Book of Mer and kind of where that came from.
Well, the Book of Mer in and of itself is a modern retelling of mermaid myths and legends from all over the world. So it'll be an ongoing series. It'll be a quarterly series since I'm doing so much for it. Nice. There'll be an audiobook and then music, and it'll be a double issue, 44 pages. And what I've decided to do was take these different myths and legends from all over, starting with American mythos and indigenous American mythos, and tie it in with real stories. Or not to say that they're not real stories, they're real, right, absolutely, for the people and their traditions and so on, but things that have happened either in my life or in people's lives who I've known, and giving the reason for the things that have happened to them a basis in mermaid stories. So there's so many different stories that you never really hear of outside of The Little Mermaid or sirens luring sailors to their watery graves. But it basically started with a question, or a couple of questions. One, where did the concept of mermaids even come from? And there are tons of mythical creatures out there, but these are very unusual because you don't see unicorns stamped into the side of Gothic cathedrals and churches and ancient reliefs and ancient Asian epitaphs and just you just don't you don't see them, but you do see mermaids and dragons and therianthropes and these half human, half watery creature beings all over the place. And a lot of them have the same kinds of stories and the same kinds of relationships between the antagonist and the protagonist or what have you. And so I just started on a rabbit hole. First, why do the Japanese collect koi? Why is it important to them? And are there only European mermaid stories? And that's okay if it is. Like a chupacabra is, they're Latino. Like you're not really going to see a chupacabra in a German story. That's okay. They might have another name for it, but
seems legit.
Yeah, if mermaids are something that are, just European, that's fine. Why? And so once I started digging, I realized that wasn't the case. And there are tons of Native American stories, and some that I'd never even heard of, like the origin of tobacco and marijuana being a sacred herb to the Blackfoot, and how it was given to them by the Beaver people. And I was just like, this is new.
Go on.
Right?
Reading's fun. You learn things.
Exactly. Or even something as late as 2014, a dam in Zimbabwe was being built, and the workers stopped working on the dam. They stopped receiving a paycheck. They said, no, we will not work because there is an Injuzu down in the dig site and they're not going. So of course the contractors were just like, okay, we will hire other people and we will interview them and first find out if they believe in Injuzu and then resume work on this dam. And after a day on the site, they come back and they're just like, look, I don't know what Injuzu is, but I believe in it now. So I'm not going back to work. And then they hire people who are white, who never even, they're like, do you believe in mermaids? They're like, what? No. What
I believe in money. About? What's next?
Exactly. They go down to the site and they're just like, look, I don't know what kind of wild animal is down there, but we're not going. So they had to call in the Minister of Water and come up with a magical solution. So I'm taking these stories that are kind of unusual and like unexplainable.
Pompoko.
Exactly. And tying them together with historical events, digging from, Civil War to feudal Japan. It's kind of going all over the place, but I'm having a really fun time digging up these stories and interviewing people who live in the places that I'm writing about, and having permission to tie their lives into these crazy myths and legends.
Man,
and then I'm making music for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it's like, oh, by the way, and we're making music for it. So that piqued my interest. I was like, what led you, other than having that part of who you are, wanting to bring that expression forward made you, what's driving the musical influence of the project?
Well, when I was younger, a lot of the books and stories that I had other media with it. So I had, back in the 80s,
we remember the back when.
Yeah. Back when I was a young whippersnapper. No, but when I was younger, I had lots of books that had either songs or they had accompanying audio and video or television shows which read the book to you. And I love those things. I started reading really, really young. Maybe 2 or 3 was when I started reading. And it was because of the media that I had that helped me visualize words and things like that. It was always just a part of my life, singing and making music. And I was a musician at 9, and I felt like in doing comics full time, I let that part of myself atrophy a bit. And a big part of Sirens and Mermaid lore is the accompanying music. Like they sing and it's an entrancing thing. It's a part of their allure and the spell, and it doesn't always have to be nefarious. So I wanted to make music to tell another part of the story that couldn't be read or seen. But I wanted the story to be felt in another way. So in the beginning, my protagonist, Astara, she has a dream about being a mermaid. And it's a really weird dream. Like when I was a kid, I'd had really, really crazy dreams. I still have crazy dreams. I had a crazy dream last night that I was in a government building and I walk into this experiment. This is a young kid who every couple of feet he walks and he gets older. But he still has the mind of a child. And he suddenly realizes that he's a part of something terrible. And he starts harming all of the people on the floor. It was like a dozen people who were killed. And I was just like, no more fizzy water before bed. Okay. But some of my dreams are just very strange. And I would draw them and write them down. And so one dream that I had was about my great-grandfather, but my great-grandfather passed away when I was 1. So I'm not really sure how I remembered his face, but the dream that I had actually saved my life in real life. And I'll tell you how in the story, but music is something that I feel like I express my emotions a lot better through music than any other medium or craft or hobby or talent or skill that I have. And I just want to bring that part of me to my first creator owned in 15 years. Yes. So for the past, 15 years, I've been making other people's dreams made manifest. So now I'm literally making my dreams come true. Hopefully not all my dreams. That'd be terrible.
Right. Pick and choose some of those.
Yeah. Selective dreams.
Now, do you have any plans to, because I've heard a couple of the things just musically you shared with me a little while ago. Do you have any plans on releasing the music aside from the book? Like, is it going to be something that people can stumble across on like Spotify and stuff, or?
Yes, absolutely. I will be releasing it on Spotify and iTunes if I can. Definitely Spotify. And I've been reaching out to a couple of folks from Lovecraft Country to see if they can help me make some cool mermaidy prosthetics and maybe make a video. We'll see. That takes a lot of money and planning. But it is something that I'm working on. I've also got something else in the works. I can't talk about that right now, but it would be really, really cool if it happens. So, yet another form of media that this story will take on. So when that does happen, I'll let you guys know.
Ooh. Well, we're just gonna try to ask you after we turn the recording off because reasons.
I can be patient.
Yeah, we could be patient. Everyone else, you're gonna have to wait till the Afua Part 2 interview, which will happen at some point.
It's a point.
Absolutely. We're friends.
We friends. It's true.
With what you had mentioned too about the creator owned versus other people's dreams, have you found, like, I know you're just kind of like diving in to what you're doing with this project, but is there more joy or delight or fulfillment in working on your own projects versus just seeing your stuff out in the wild, or like where's the balance there?
It is a different experience. One, I'm a terrible taskmaster, and if I'm awake, I'm working. So I don't stop working on this. I have to like schedule active rest, like play a video game, eat food while playing a video game, because my mind is always working on this. But it's both very joyful and agonizing because you want it to be perfect, but you have to kind of move on to the next thing. But I don't know. I felt like after so much time working on a lot of these stories, I felt like I couldn't put my heart into it like I would something that's mine, because it's not my job to create necessarily. It's my job to execute. So they have a concept or they have an idea, and it's my job to meet them somewhere in the middle. So my clients kind of know what they want. They have an idea, they see what it is that I do, and they want me to do that for them. But I have to play within the rules of what it is that they want. So my self-expression is really only limited to what it is, what tools I have available. So a particular costume, a pose, an expression, a body type is all, that's all them and taken care of. And in a way that kind of gives me a bit of freedom to be able to say, okay, well, the design work is taken care of. That's fine. How can I take a character that everybody knows and has seen and already has an idea in their mind of what they look like, and bring a new set of emotions and a new set of feelings to this character with what it is that I do? That part of my brain, which goes to work on practical costumes and colors and things like that, that would be what would be in the closet of my character, so to speak. Like, you don't necessarily have to go shopping for Batman. Like, right. Bruce Wayne has a set of clothes, what the guy's wearing. There's not really anything that you have.
Why is everything in shades of black?
Right? I see my wardrobe and I want it painted black. Yeah, everything is just...
Nailed it.
It's just black. You might have a spot of white, just a little bit.
Right.
It's
like, what's that for? He's like, that's for Labor Day. What? How awkward. Really?
Bruce. I'm having a happy day. Like, there's no Hawaiian shirts in Bruce Wayne's closet. It's not happening. But with this, it's fun. I kind of get to go shopping for my character. I get to say, okay, well, I've been collecting these things for years, and actually collecting clothing to see, like, okay, will this work? Would someone be able to do what it is that this person does and be able to move around in this kind of weird harness contraption thing? No. So how can I take this apart and reassemble it and make it practical for what it is that they do, but also says, like, okay, when I look at this and I see their silhouette, I know exactly who they are, even if I have no details. So creating those things and sort of digging up that part of my mind has been great. It's been really enlivening. And I think, when I go back to freelance, if I do, it will maybe change how I feel about it a great deal. Like, I don't get to design any fun costumes from.
Oh, but it's really interesting to me that the amount of research it sounds like you put in is a lot. And Absolutely. I know that every creative kind of has a different approach to how they do things. And I know that a lot of folks do do research, but I'm sitting here going, it's like your closet must be really insane right now because you're like, I'm testing stuff out. And I mean, Hector and I also know that you have a slight affinity towards cosplay as well, which means that it's like, where's the Venn diagram overlap of these two things? Or do you just have like 5 closets, and that's the cosplay closet, that's the active project one, that's the one I think I actually go through to decide what I'm going to go out today in.
Your Labor Day shirt.
Yeah, your Labor Day shirt. See?
I've actually been also gathering different pieces and thrift shop hunting for costumes to wear so that when the book comes out and there's a reasonable amount of social interaction again,
right.
I'll perform the songs live dressed in mermaidy attire, with my musicians. So I'm producing this album with a really fantastic team of folks. Mike Smith is on guitar, and he's the person who we've been sending tracks back and forth, and Paul Ritchie, who's a really fantastic musician and songwriter and in a couple of different bands, and he's producing. And I'm working with a bass player named John Ferrara, who is just mind-blowingly good. Like if you've ever seen videos of Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, like it's kind of like watching him.
Okay.
He's just,
oh wow, tons of energy.
He's so good. It's like my heart hurts. Like I'm just gonna put my bass down now because I'm like I get embarrassed to play when he's around. But thankfully, he's also my bass teacher. So
yay!
The first song is based on a song that he actually wrote. It was just this instrumental song called Pluto is a Planet. And I added lyrics and a cello arrangement for it. And we renamed it Pluto's Dream to, sort of correspond with the dream that the main character is having. And so when the book comes out, we will perform said song, and I will find all the mermaidy things to wear with it that I can, at least move around in. I don't think I can move around in a mermaid tail. I like sneakers.
But why?
We have a friend that is, I do. I don't know if she's in your bubble, Chris, but there's a friend in the Myrtle Beach region that does primarily mermaid cosplay.
Cool.
And she does it as a fundraiser awareness thing for dolphins and some other ocean themed things.
That's super cool.
But but in any con she does one day, she's always in mermaid. And so she's built a custom wheelchair that looks like, the kind of Little Mermaid rock type situation.
Yeah.
So that she can actually roll up with her tail out and like greet people and stuff like that.
That's amazing.
But it's a unique vibe to have. But your photo shoot you did just kind of prepping for all this, that was amazing. So
thank you. I harassed my friends. They were kind enough to play dress up with me, and I went through my closet and put all of these different things together for some of the characters in stories like later down the line. Like I'm getting into the Saba Wailnu, which is a halfway person in Mi'kmaq, northeastern Canadian Native American mythos. And I'm also getting into the Caribbean La Sirène and La Baleine, the Siren and the Whale. It's part of an old children's song about a man who encounters a siren, like catches her, and she asks, like, will you let me go? Like if you take me back to shore, you'll probably have a large fortune. But my augmentation to the story is, she shows him the possibilities of all of what will happen to him if he takes her back to shore. Like he'll, encounter somebody, they'll hit him over the head, take her, and then, he'll have nothing, or he'll manage to go another way, knowing that that's going to happen. And then open up this side attraction, make a lot of money, get robbed, and then all these kind of terrible things that will happen where he'll get wealthy, but then he'll lose it. Or she can give him this little pearl. And he's like, well, what'll happen if I take the pearl? Meh. You'll have to find out. And so that story kind of explores those sorts of possibilities. But there's a little song in Haitian Creole that's like La Siren, la baleine, chantant pour la mer, which means like my hat falls into the sea, which means I've fallen under the spell of the mermaid. So my main character is reading this storybook, and she's got her little headphones on, and she's being told this story of the mermaid and the whale.
What up, nerd? Thank you for listening to this podcast from the Love Thy Nerd Podcast Network. We hope you're enjoying it. But hey, did you know that Love Thy Nerd airs almost all of its podcasts first on LTN Radio? That's right. LTN Radio is your home for the best Christian rock, rap, pop, and indie music. And it's also the place to go to hear Love Thy Nerd's content before it reaches the podcast feed. In addition to that, Love Thy Nerd creates a lot of content that's exclusive to LTN Radio that you're missing out on. So go check out ltnonair.com and listen for yourself. You can also download the Live 365 app on your smartphone and search and favorite LTN Radio, or enable the LTN Radio skill on your Echo devices and simply ask Alexa to play Love Thy Nerd. Now let's get you back to that podcast.
And that might be the place where we need to transition a little bit into your most recent television work.
Yes.
That I'm also behind on, so I'm going to let Hector completely yeah, well,
dude,
I have to trade some of my TV watching time because my wonderful wife does have a gore limit. So there are certain shows, right? There are some shows that I have to rack and stack and be like, I'm going to knock these out this weekend, either because she's got something going on. I love my wife dearly. This is not me condemning her, but
you're partaking in like spending time with her and some of the shows she wants to watch, and you know, we can't.
And then there's other shows we look at, and she's like, I really, really want to enjoy this, but yeah.
Aw.
My wife works in the medical field, so she's like, bother her.
Right. This is good. This is fine.
She can't deal with phlegm, but she can look at an open body with, no problem.
Yeah. Well, medical field folks, special brand of people.
Props to you guys.
Truth. So yeah, go for it. Let's talk Lovecraft Country.
Let's talk Lovecraft Country. Were you aware of the book before you were approached with the project, or like?
I wasn't actually. I started reading it when I was asked to participate. Of course, I've heard of H.P. Lovecraft, and a lot of his creatures and stories, and even his strange life as he wasn't very successful as a writer. He'd always been sponsored, and he really is. He just kind of had a string of failures, and he was either sponsored by his mother or his current lover, and then, as many people are, his works weren't appreciated until after he died. And then, there was also the back and forth for that periodical that he was writing for, where he was insulting another writer's characters, saying that his main protagonist was feeble-minded, like colored people. And so he was branded with the racist thing, which, fair. that's fair.
It's like, wrote that down.
You want to talk about feeble-minded and you can't even pay your rent? But and so I started to read the story, but everything moved so quickly. I think I started work on the project a year beforehand in May or June, and it was just full speed ahead after that. It was my first time working on a movie set, and it was filmed, a large portion of it was filmed here in Georgia, where I live. And I was 15 minutes, about a 15-minute drive from the set.
That's pretty sweet.
Huge set. I'd never really seen a movie set like that up close. I've been on a lot of video sets and a lot of television sets, or like daytime television kind of thing. But this was insane. I've never seen anything like this before. And I don't think a lot of the people who worked there have either. I worked under props master JP Jones, who's very prolific. He made a lot of the props on the show. So the orrery, a lot of the weapons, the armor. A props master is basically someone who makes everything that the actors touch that isn't wardrobe, which is a lot. So he was responsible for a lot. He was putting out a lot of fires. At one point, there was a car stunt where, Hector, you've seen this show where the car flips over, like kind of out of nowhere. People actually got hurt during that set. So he had to literally run. I remember him running and putting these things out. But I worked with him to create a comic book. So in the story, sorry for the mini spoilers.
He can take it.
Yeah, I'm fine. and we usually warn most of our people. It's like, you've had your chance.
Spoilers. There is a one of the primary differences from the novel by Mr. Ruff and the film is that Horace, who is the son of Hippolyta and George, is replaced with a girl. So Diana, they have a daughter instead of a son, and she is like her parents, a avid sci-fi reader, and makes her own hand-drawn comics. Now, they didn't want it to look like a kid drew it. They wanted a very talented teenager. And I was like, I will be a very talented teenager. Thank you. So a lot of my work is done digitally because my traditional style is very sketchy. And I started off actually working primarily in watercolors. And somebody very misinformed told me along the line, like, you can't make comic books with watercolor. And I was like, but no. Oh,
oops.
Okay. So I started learning Photoshop and Illustrator to try and remedy some of my sketchy choices. But they saw some of my commissions on Instagram, and they were like, we want that for her. You just wanted to be really cool. And so I got to make these hand-drawn comics with crayon and color pencil and on notebook paper, which was very tough. But it had to be, like a handmade, homemade. And it felt like I was a little kid all over again, making my own comics. And basically what she does is she sees what her parents do and she translates it into a story. So her father, George, makes a book called The Green Book, or this Safe Negro Travel Guide, which in the 1950s, there was a postman who lived in New York City in real life who saw the need for emerging Black middle class and motorist to find places in the Jim Crow segregated South that they could go that were safe and also wanted to serve brown folks. Mm-hmm. And then it's a very needed service, because if you go somewhere that you're not wanted, that could mean life or death.
Right.
And, needless friction, this helps avoid that. So George would go on these trips that were very dangerous. And sometimes he would come back, as he mentioned, with a broken femur or a bullet wound or these different things from the people who, things changed from the last time he visited that diner. So he puts out this book and says, okay, these are the places, these are the updated places that you can go. You can find lodging, dinner, what have you, or you can shop here and it's fine. Her mother, on the other hand, is a burgeoning astronomer and is really, into the stars. And so as a comic book, she makes Arithia Blue, which is about a space traveler, her mother as a space adventurer, and her father as Panther Man, this guy who goes down into the jungle and gets information back to protect his people and families. So it was really cool to not only work on that, but also work with Jada Harris, the actress who plays Diana, and show her how to draw. She's such a quick study. She had to learn so much for this role. She had to learn how to ride a bike and draw and just do all these different things, but she picked it up really, really quickly, and it was fun. She's so sweet. Her and her mom. We spent a few hours just working on drawing, and we were so proud of, I showed some of the drawings to JP, who I worked with directly, and he's like, this is her drawing. We're so proud. We were just so excited for her. And so when Diana during the series encounters different creatures and different Lovecraftian, monsters, and she can't speak about what's happening, she has to draw what's going on. So it needed to look natural for her to go over my lines. And so I would do half drawings and she would complete them on camera.
That's neat.
And then also I got this really amazing shout out in the finale, which
Hector needs to tell his story of that experience, because
I've told Afua, but that's the thing. It's
right.
The entire, once I started seeing your art on screen, through the thing, I'm like, that's Afua. I was like, but even before I knew that you were in it or involved, I'm just sitting there with my wife, and we're like, that's Afua art. And it's because that's the thing, but I didn't even know your name was involved until I was so cool. knee deep in it. And because if for those of you who aren't familiar, her art has a very unique flavor, and you can tell they're just certain, maybe it's just because I've been around it long enough, but you can see out of a lineup, that's her. And so I started seeing your art present, and but then literally I was sitting here with my wife, and my kids, when I told them we were doing this, she's like, "Oh, is that the lady you yelled about?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So as we were getting in the finale, and I saw the comic coming on screen or being handed over, and I'm like, I just looked over, I paused the video and I looked at my wife. I was like, man, I'm so happy that Fu is getting this national blah, blah, blah. And literally my wife and I had a heart to heart moment of man, good for her. Man, I'm so proud of her. And all this. And so we did all that. And then I paused, did my golf clap and just excited about it. And then literally as soon as we hit pause and hit play and went back into it, and she said, an artist named Afua taught me, I literally threw a pillow and I screamed. I was ah! And I screamed literally. My kids all three of my kids came bounding down the hall. Are you okay? Are you hurt? And because they literally thought something tragic had happened because I screamed so loudly. And it's that Leonardo DiCaprio meme of you're right. But I was so happy for you in that. I was happy that you were doing the project. Period. Good work, art, awesome,
for sure.
All that's great. But the fact that in creating the story, which, the book is wonderful, but also the fact that I think, especially for our climate and culture right now, that it was extremely relevant and important dialogue, of things that were being brought up throughout the series. Because a lot of America didn't know that some of the stuff, the fact that people were still learning about Emmett Till.
Right.
The fact that and in full disclosure, I didn't know about the travel guide.
And that's okay. There's so many things that we don't necessarily know about.
Outside of an amazing horror depiction and a cool story, sure. there's a lot of important voice to it, and the fact that your name didn't just get in the credit. Out of all the artists that worked on this thing in different areas, that they called you out by name. Now, did you know that was happening before?
I remember, because I was also working with the executive producer, Misha Green, and she we were all just kind of going back and forth on these things. And that comic that Hippolyta hands to Diana was supposed to be a full comic. But we got some wires crossed and we got the dates confused. So I didn't get to finish it. But within it, I was supposed to draw all of her experiences, like all the places that she traveled, all the places that she went. And then I wrote, they wanted me to write in a scenario where she gets in an elevator and then the door opens and there's my studio in this like Ghost in the Shell looking loft.
Right.
And I spin around in a chair and hand her a Wacom pen. Like, are you ready to write your own, history? And like, I was supposed to write myself into the story. But we didn't get a chance to do that. And so since we didn't get to do that, which I thought was cool in the first place, like, oh my God, that's so strange. But wait, I have to do this by tomorrow? I thought you said a month from now. And they're like, no. I'm like, oh. So I ended up creating that cover in like 3 hours and then had to change the robot arm to a regular arm. And I'm like, I've been up for 48 hours already.
This is fine.
That's how I was feeling. As soon as I finished it, I just fell asleep just at the desk. Yeah, and so when JP came back into the office and he was like, hey, so we decided on something really cool. And I was like, what? What is happening? What?
more draw? Not right now.
He's like, okay, so we're going to write you as an off-screen character. And I was like, huh? What is? Well, at the point, because I didn't know the story. So I didn't know what was happening. So I only knew the story through the context of Dee's comic, which was fun because it was still a surprise for me. But yeah, you're going to teach Hippolyta how to draw. And I was like, like I didn't understand what he was saying. Like it didn't quite sink in. And he says, yeah, we're gonna, it's gonna be so cool. And I'm like, oh. And I could tell he was really excited about it. So I kind of like, not that I pretended to be excited, but I didn't understand. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. What? Like I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. So a year later, when they send me the clip, because I didn't get to do the interior pages, I did them in post, and they like used the CG team to like graft the pages in that she opens up in the comic, which is amazing. I was like, you can do that? Well, I guess if you could do like crazy Lovecraftian monsters, you can just superimpose some comic pages. But then when I saw it and I heard it, I just started crying. I really did. I ugly cried. It was like, I just started crying because growing up, I grew up in New York, and my dad is from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and there weren't a lot of opportunities for him because he's a physicist and a teacher and a soldier and an officer, in the military. There is a distinction. Do not make that mistake. He is an officer, retired. And I just remember him telling me, do art seriously, but don't seriously do art. There's no place for us in art, is what he would say. And it's not because he didn't believe in my abilities. It's because he didn't believe in the path. He didn't believe that I could be successful in a place that wouldn't necessarily see my worth because they saw my face first. And times have changed. Everything, it's not perfect, but things are changing, and we do have to acknowledge that, because it was to say that it's exactly like it was then, it is actually dishonoring what it is that someone like him had to go through. Or someone like Gloria Richardson, who fought to have schools desegregated, or hospitals and all these other things, because it went against the Constitution, because I believe it was either her brother or her uncle, went into a hospital, and they wouldn't serve him, and he died. And my dad getting denied scholarships, and they were given to people, he said, who didn't even want them. Meanwhile, he made a sculpture that was sitting right in the entrance of the school. He did oil paintings that are still up in his university. I mean, he's a brilliant man, and helped develop MRIs and string theory, but he was a sculptor and an oil painter and did all these things, but didn't think and knew from his experiences that there was no place for him to pursue that any further. And he didn't want me to be disappointed. So to now be able to do this for a living, and say, Dad, we made a place for ourselves. It really, oh man, it really means a lot to me. And it's hard work. Art is very hard. You have to take a lot from yourself and put it on the page, but I'm glad to be able to do it and share this with him.
Yeah.
And I know I'm crying, but I don't know why I'm crying. But after seeing that, I think that's when I made the decision, like, yeah, you know what? I know things are crazy right now. But if a company like this, to make a production like this, believes in me, then I need to believe in me too. So that's why I decided to do my Kickstarter in the middle of 2020, which was crazy.
This is fine.
But I'm like, now is a good time, because that kind of stuff doesn't really happen. There's so many really skilled people, and even people I knew, like I was running into my friends who'd been working in the industry for so long. And even storyboard artist Eric Yamamoto, like he works on all of, I'm drawing a blank right now. What is the producer of this series? He did Us and... Thank you, Jordan Peele. He storyboards all of Jordan Peele's films and movies and series, and he didn't get a shout out. And not to say that he didn't deserve it or anything like that, but the fact that they chose me for it, I don't take that lightly. And it was a huge honor. And considering like the costume designers and the sets, like all of those rooms, even the bar, that was made. These things were made. Like, it wasn't just like, oh yeah, this is a great place that we're going to film this thing. No, these sets were built. The observatory.
I saw a photo with you with the observatory stuff. That was dope.
Built. Like, that was built. Like these stone bricks, all these things were built, and all of the hands, even the underground tunnels when they were trying to get to that locked chamber, that was a labyrinth that was built and filled with water, so that as they went further along, more and more, it looked like the water was rising higher. All of these things were built, all of those hands that went into making this thing, and they chose me to say thank you. So I don't take that lightly, and it really meant a lot to me. So this project that I'm working on also means a great deal. And I think it's the first time that I'm really going to be able to say who I am through it. And some things are pretty and some things are ugly, but that's life, but I'm just really excited about it.
So when this project drops in its fullness, as like when in all its many facets,
yes.
What would it take for you to consider it successful?
Gosh, I don't know.
Because some people just think creating it's success. Some people think I need it to have this type of response. Like when you sit back, it's in the world, it's birthed. Like, at what point do you feel like this has succeeded?
Well, it's always my objective to make someone feel what I hope they feel from it. But when people, I think if people start extracting new meaning from it, that's when I'll be like, all right. Like when it starts taking on a life of its own and people are extracting symbols that I didn't see, that I didn't even intend from it. I hope I can build a world that is thought and emotionally invoking, that people can see themselves in a bunch of different characters. At first, it's going to be a little weird, because whenever you're getting into a dream sequence, it's always weird. It's like, what? But then as the episodes and issues go on, and you start to get to know the characters and their personality and their objectives and dreams and wants and some of the challenges and the things that they have to change about themselves in order to be who they need to be to move not only the story forward, but them as individuals forward, that it'll resonate with other people. And I know when it comes to music, everybody has a different style and so on. I was like, but I hope they like the songs too.
So
I don't know. I mean, if people buy it and they want more of it and they let me know, I guess that's a success. Yeah. We want more of the things. Like, okay.
Hey everyone, I'm Radio Matt from the Back Row Morning Show, and I've got your 5 random facts. Cruise ships have morgues that can store up to 10 bodies at once. The average amount of people that die on cruise ships per year is 200. Sorry, Mo. Small as they may be, ladybugs have a unique smell that humans are incredibly sensitive to. During World War II, a U.S. naval destroyer won a battle against a Japanese submarine by throwing potatoes at them. The Japanese thought they were grenades. A man with severe OCD and a phobia of germs attempted to commit suicide with a gun to his head. Instead of killing him, the bullet eliminated his mental illness without any other damage. And lastly, vanilla flavoring is sometimes made with the urine of beavers. For more facts and other hilarious nonsense, join me and Mo for the Back Row Morning Show at 7 a.m. and again at 9 a.m. Eastern every Monday through Thursday, right here on LTN Radio.
As we kind of come to a close here, I think there's 2 things that we would like to know. And the last one obviously is going to be all of the either the cool places we can find you or things that you can tell us about. But I think the one thing, given where our conversation has kind of ended up, that I'd be curious is, what advice do you have for those that are starting out? Because your journey, as we've talked over the last hour, and from, again, multi-talented, of music to writing to the artwork, and then creative influence and screen now, with the overlapping of them. And so, yeah, what's your advice to those that are faced with that kind of conversation with mom and dad of, I think I have this artistic ability?
One, you have to find your community, because your parents are going to want an easier time for you. And the path of the artist is not an easy one, because you can go to school and you can learn how to draw. And there are a lot of different kinds of jobs in drawing. Learn what those are. Because you can just say, oh, well, I want to do animation. Learn what those jobs are, because it's not just drawing characters, it's drawing environments. You have to know what your craft is, and you have to research it a great deal. But you also need to push yourself, because there are a lot of different artists out there. And if you're going to get a job, you're going to have to challenge yourself. There are going to be things that you draw well, because you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't do something well. And yes, you're not the best. It's okay. You can be patient with yourself. It's not going to look exactly like someone who's been doing it for 20 years, obviously. So don't do that. Don't say like, oh, well, I'm nothing because I'm not this amazing person. That's kind of like saying like, okay, I'm going to start gymnastics today, but I'm not like this Olympic champion. So like, get started. You're going to have to train, and you're going to have to lean on the things that are not easy. So start drawing hands and feet already. It's okay. and find teachers out there. Like, go online, get these tutorials, get started, draw the things that you like and the things that are not easy for you, because you're not going to get any better at them until you get started. Carry a sketchbook around with you everywhere, because drawing digitally and drawing traditionally are important. Drawing traditionally, for those artists who are primarily digital, it helps you understand depth. With a digital device, you can kind of get flattened out sometimes, because you're not able to really turn something around in your mind. When you're drawing from life and from something that you can see, you're restoring your memory banks with how light interacts with the object. So study light, study dimension, and how to represent that in your work. Style. Everybody wants to figure out style right away. It's kind of like doing a guitar solo before you learn how to play the instruments. Your style will come because they're things that you will like and you will repeat. And that's going to be your style. It'll just develop through time, especially if you observe other artists and say, okay, this is what I like about their work, and I want to incorporate that into mine. I just need to know how they do it and what of it, not to draw exactly like them, but to say, what is it about their style? Can I define what it is? And once you start defining those things, you can start saying like, okay, well, I want this kind of line weight. I want these kinds of details. I want to be able to say like, okay, when I go to draw figures, they're dynamic, and what does that mean? And also, getting a job and getting seen, building a portfolio, those things are absolutely important, because your online face of art is how people judge you. So how you present your art, it's kind of like any other business. The body of work that you have represents what it is that you can do. So figure out how long it takes for you to get to a finished project. You're a contractor. This is how long it takes to build this building. And you're probably not going to be able to charge the amount that you want at first, but that's okay. Your body of work will build over time, and you'll be able to say, okay, my experience is now saying like, I know what I'm doing. And so I'm asking for this amount because of the time that I've put in previously and the time that I'll save you if you decide to work with me. But ask other people. Like, I have a group on Facebook called Dr. Fu's Lab for beginning artists and even existing professionals, where they can just post and get used to posting their work and practicing and getting more things out, but also questions. And we have like group chats and things like that, because knowing what to charge and knowing how to ask clients for those right questions that say, okay, this is, how do I know what to charge if I don't know what the job is and when you need it, and so on. So getting people comfortable with being okay with charging for their artwork is something that is very important, because your internet and paper and the programs that you pay for every month, those things cost money. And undercharging yourself means that you are essentially paying someone else for the pleasure of doing artwork. That's not going to work. Like, it's
that's
okay.
Not how that's supposed to work.
No. Like, if you go to a restaurant and you really enjoy the food, and this is the cost and this is the profit, it's okay to make a profit, not just the bare minimum of what you need to get by. It's okay. So I like to help artists get past that hurdle, because I've had other artists help me. I'm a completely self-taught artist, and people like David Mack or Brian Stelfreeze and Neil Adams, they were very kind in helping me understand the business aspect of art. And so I like to pass those things on to other people, because the more people can successfully make art, the less heartache, the easier it is for people to express themselves. And it makes me happy. people making what it is they want to make makes me happy. They may conform Voltron and then save the universe.
We're gonna do it.
Yeah,
I will share the group's link in the show notes for folks, because I know I've seen a lot of those conversations, and I have zero artistic ability, but I'm there because I was like, I love you all and I want to be supportive, and I'm like, good.
And there's so many. Yeah,
I'll submit my stick figures later. It'll be good.
There's so many jobs in art that are not just artists. There are lawyers, there are editors, there are copy editors, there are writers, there's graphic designers. And it's not to say that that's not art, but that's a very different aspect of illustration. Those things are all needed. And lawyers, these different aspects of creating work and creating independent properties, it's really important that people have support outside of just being able to draw noses and heads from different angles.
So just before we go, what is the thing that you are most excited for next? Besides the Book of Mer, obviously.
Besides the Book of Mer.
That you can legally talk about.
Details. Speaking of lawyers.
Besides the Book of Mer, what am I excited about? That's even hard to think about. I'm so narrowly focused at the moment.
Okay, maybe it should be fair to say that it is the Book of Mer.
It is the Book of
Mer. I am. I'm just looking forward to the summer. Can I just have warm weather all the time, please? I'm looking forward to just going outside and seeing my friends.
Yes.
Conventions resuming, just outdoor people times. That is what I am looking forward to.
I think Hector and I fully agree, as this is literally like basically the overdue conversation that we needed to have on a con floor like at least 6 months ago.
Yes.
Or like after a con.
Right. True.
I'm looking forward to karaoke.
Oh, there's so many things. But Afua, we do love you dearly. I think it probably has shown over the last hour for some of our listeners, and we just want to thank you for coming and spending some time with us. A brief moment to talk of all the cool things that you're doing before you and life experiences and everything. That's kind of what we're about here, is getting into the life of the creatives that we interact with and get to share the things that they're doing, also some of the stuff that makes them who they are. And so thank you for coming and spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me.
So I think that's going to do it for us here at the Polis Podcast. Episode 50 is now all wrapped up. It's in your ears, or at least hopefully it's in your ears. It's a podcast. But we couldn't possibly do this alone. As many of you know, we take this epic journey of podcasts and fandom along with a lot of other amazing podcasts that are all part of the Love Thy Nerd podcast network. So be sure to visit lovethynerd.com for more info, previous episodes, and maybe find yourself a new show to add to your routine. Hector and I and Afua today would love to just thank you all for choosing us and the Polis Podcast as your comic book knowledge factory on a, near weekly basis. We try. So don't leave us hanging. Rate and review the show on your podcasting app of choice. We're on the iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, and so many more. Ultimately, it's been a pleasure, Afua. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And remember, kids, read more comics.